Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We know that for many years now, the SNP, and more latterly as well, the Greens, have always liked to blame the government of Westminster when things go wrong. And this is quite wrong, because just about everything that has gone wrong in Scotland is totally a devolved power, totally done by the SNP, by the Scottish Government, run by the SNP. 16 years. It's not as though you can blame the previous government. This is 16 years of mal-rule by one party, a single party state. And that has led to the most awful falling down of just about every metric going. Be it education, social care, transport, you name it, it's failing. Everything that is devolved is failing. And none more so than the Scottish National Health Service. It is in dire straits. It is barely functional. You're having patients who are redlining, that is to say, coming in the blues and twos in ambulances. Their lives are in a critical state and they're having to wait for as long as 8 hours. And they are emergency patients. That is how bad the NHS in Scotland has got. And of course, they are still blaming Westminster. It is nothing to do with Westminster. It is totally the SNP. And it is in desperate need of doctors. Thousands of doctors. And you have to ask why these doctors are not choosing to work in Scotland. Is it because the Scottish NHS is so appallingly bad? Doctors are fearful of working in it in case there's untold deaths and that they will be held responsible. It's entirely possible. But it is massive malfeasance on the part of the government to not have an efficient social cared health service. We'll take a look at this article and see what's going on. So NHS Scotland desperately needs thousands of GPs as the result of SNP mismanagement. The British Medical Association has warned that the Scottish Government's target of hiring 700 GPs by 2027 is desperately behind schedule. Is anyone surprised? This is, after all, the SNP we're talking about. They couldn't organise a jumble sale, let alone a massive organisation like the NHS. So the SNP's mismanagement of Scotland's NHS has left the country in dire need of thousands of GPs, it has been warned. The Scottish Government has pledged to recruit 800 GPs by 2027, but the British Medical Association said ministers are desperately behind schedule on meeting this target. It added that even the number promised is not enough, citing considerable gaps across the workforce. This is shameful. There is no other word for it. The people who are running this, I can't even call it a service anymore, this shambolic health system, they need to be held to absolute account. And we need to have the published figures to see how many people are waiting, how long for any kind of treatment, and how many are dying while on those lists. It's an appalling use or misuse of the powers that were given to the devolved government. If anything screams out for devolution to be ended here and now, and for it all to go back to Westminster, it is this. It is the way that the Scottish Health Service is crumbling. It's just gone. The blame has been firmly put at the door of the SNP government for a failure in NHS workforce planning. Scottish Conservative Shadow Health Secretary Dr Sandesh Galain, MSP, said this is a damning indictment of the SNP's abject failure in the NHS workforce planning. They know they need people. They know that they need to recruit, and they can't. Why can they not get doctors into the NHS? It's not as though they don't have money. They've got plenty of money. You only have to see all the money they keep wasting on things that are useless. So successive SNP health secretaries have failed to provide frontline services with the resources they need to meet growing patient demand. And as a GP myself, he said, I'm acutely aware of the pressure being felt by colleagues. This study shows that, as is so often the case under the SNP Green government, it's rural communities who are suffering the most from staff shortages, because they don't care. They only care about the big cities. They only care where there's a lot of people where they can quite easily swing votes. That's all they care about. People living in rural Scotland have got very, very few resources, and it isn't just the NHS. It's transport, it's communications, it's all sorts of things. They are the forgotten people as far as this government is concerned. Only this week, he said, we discovered that more staff left the NHS in the last year than joined it, which totally undermines SNP ministers' boasts on recruitment rate. Yeah, they're recruiting a lot of people, but what they're telling you is they're not recruiting these number of people to increase the people, number of people in the NHS, but to actually supplement all those who are leaving. But they're leaving far, far quicker than they're being onboarded. It is a shrinking service, if service it is. It's not even a service anymore, is it? It is patients. He said it is patients and dedicated staff who are suffering as a result of the SNP failing to get on top of soaring levels of vacancies. And the Scottish Conservatives have outlined bold plans that would deliver a modern, efficient and local health service. It's time we saw Michael Matheson do similar. Matheson, of course, is the health minister. BMA Scotland Chair Dr. Ian Kennedy, please. We said we believe that we need at least 1,000 whole-time equivalent additional GPs now. He was speaking as BMA Scotland published new heat maps, which said it shows all areas of Scotland face a medical staffing crisis. All areas, every single part of Scotland has a medical staffing crisis. Why is this not being addressed? This is, as I say, this is shameful. SNP government, I'm going to say every member of the SNP, not just the government, every SNP supporter, everyone who is voting for these people needs to hang their heads in shame. For GPs, the BMA said the vacancy rates were 3.3 whole-time equivalents per 100,000 population in Greater Glasgow and Clyde to 12 per 100,000 in Orkney. Although the NHS Shetland area was described as an outlier, its vacancy was 25 per 100,000. That means that in Glasgow, Greater Glasgow and Clyde, you need to hire an extra 3 GPs for every 100,000 people. And in Shetland, you need to hire another 25 per 100,000 people. That's how few GPs there are in Shetland. If you're going to be ill, for heaven's sake, don't be doing it on the islands. Meanwhile, the whole-time equivalency consultancy vacancies in hospital range from 3.4 per 100,000 in the Borders to 40 in the NHS Western Isles. 40. That's unbelievable. Although the BMA said that with the vacancy rates of 30, 24.5 and 21.5 respectively, the Highlands, Grampians and Lanarkshire are also struggling. This is an immense amount of doctors. Not only is it a very low amount. How can I rephrase this? Not only is it meaning that the doctors are struggling, it means that patients are waiting longer. But the doctors themselves are going to be under so much pressure, mental. They will be more at a breaking strain and more likely to leave. And that will only exacerbate the problem. You need to get doctors in, and you need 1,000 doctors immediately just to maintain that you can keep the doctors you have before they go under with their own issues and problems, mental problems, which will affect their physical health. The whole system is crashing. Everybody knows it, and yet nobody in the SNP government is willing to grasp the nettle and actually do something about it and spend money wisely instead of wasting it on useless vanity projects. Dr. Kennedy said, the heat maps show while some places are faring far worse than others, these are all just different shades of bad. There is no good places to be. He said all areas are struggling with large workforce gaps. Some are struggling more than others, but crucially, what the heat maps indicate is that no area is not facing a medical staffing crisis. So not just vacancies, but a crisis. The BMA said that there is a discrepancy in vacancy rates between rural and urban areas. Nothing surprising there. Noting that health boards with more rural populations also have higher vacancy rates. Again, it's because, for whatever reason, the SNP really doesn't care. I've said it before, they don't care about rural Scotland. They really couldn't give a toss. presumably because there's not enough people to vote for them. I don't know. But it goes on. He's saying there that these challenging. They're providing more than 700,000 appointments a week, and that's a lot of appointments. And you need thousands more doctors. It's obvious. Anyway, he said since 2017, Scotland's GP headcount has increased by 291. So in 6 years, it's gone up by 291, and that's a record high of 5,209. A £20,000 bursary is offered as an incentive to GP speciality trainees in hard-to-fill vacancies, including certain rural areas, and trainee recruitment last year was the most successful year of any of the last 5, with 99% of GP training posts filled. This is them just trying to justify things, isn't it? The fact is that if you've got it's just over 5,000 doctors for 5 million people. It's not hard to see that is nowhere near enough. It is anywhere near enough. You need to have way more. I would suggest you need to at least double that. You're going to need 10,000. And that would mean that every GP had 10,000 people on his books. It's ridiculous. How can they let this organisation crumble so far, so fast? And of course, they will be blaming Westminster. They always blame Westminster, but this is nothing to do. This is all at the door of the SNP. They should be... That Parliament needs to go. This alone is why I think devolution should be ended. I'm coming up. Now, this isn't some abstruse, obscure argument about rights or freedoms or of self-determination. It's not even something like... There's something more serious, like the whole economy, something like that. This is people's lives. People's lives are being permanently damaged or even ended by an SNP government that is totally incapable of doing the one thing a government is there to do, to protect its people. It is the first and underlying meaning of even having a government is the protection of its people. And this government, this SNP government, is quite clearly not doing that. Thousands of people will be dying under the hands of this government and their complete mismanagement of the NHS in Scotland. It's got to stop. They need to be held accountable. And I think, as I say, this is surely the greatest argument to get rid of the devolved government and put it back into the hands of people who can actually do something to change it. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, for heaven's sake, stay out of hospital, and goodbye.